All right, I'm back. It's coming up on 4 p.m. So a special Wednesday edition of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. And my guest today is going to be Stephan Kesting of Grapple Arts. And anybody who was here just a few minutes ago, I encourage you to take a look at the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast that we just finished. It was pretty interesting. I talked about a lot of my Jeet Kune Do colleagues who chimed in on the question about the UFC and MMA and Jeet Kune Do training. So we'll give Mr. Kesting a couple minutes to get here. I'm pretty sure he'll be on time. Well, he'll be on time. So let's see who's here. Dusty Jarrell from Indiana. Daryl White is back in. Hey, Daryl. Zoran Spasov. Maggie Rowe. Wow, that's cool, Maggie. How are you? All right, so, yeah. Hey, Heva Mundi. Heva, so many people loved our dialogue episode. They thought it was really cool. I told them, of course it was cool. Heva Mundi is cool. Not me. But she's cool. All right. So, what news can I give you? Friday we will have. Hi, Robert. We will have an episode of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues on Friday as well. Should be the same time, the normal time, 3 p.m. And it will be with. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed with Reuben Griffith Jr. Who's a guy out of North Carolina. Hi, Kent. So some of you might remember when I spoke with Michael Marcellus Brown. Fix it from here. Nope, I can't fix it. No, I gotta shut it down and redo it. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes, guys. Thanks. Okay, take two. We haven't had to do a take two in a while, so hopefully this will work. Sorry, I feel really bad when this happens and you guys gotta be. So hey, Bert Richardson. Bert Richardson, you should. I owe you a huge debt for your contributions. You didn't even know about it. Your contributions to the recently concluded I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. I don't know how you and Greg Nelson even found that post that I did, but I did. You guys had such good comments on it that I went ahead and used it as the foundation for today's broadcast. So I'll send it to you in a message if you can't find it on my feed, Bert. All right, Stefan. Okay, well, I see you. Thank you. There we go. Watch this. Okay. Adding, guys. Everybody, go like this. They do have Wi-Fi in Canada, don't they? I'm kidding. Mr. Spazov, welcome.
Oh, here we go. Hello. Yes, we have Wi-Fi in Canada. It's I was just trying to figure out how to do it on my desktop. Hello. Yes, we have Wi-Fi in Canada. It's I was just trying to figure out how to do it on my desktop. Hello. Yes, we have Wi-Fi in Canada.
That's not good. Do you have that?
Let's see if this works.
Well, that sounds better.
Okay. Well,
yeah. What do you think that was?
I think that was feedback between feedback between the computer and the phone. But I doubt it'll come, and hopefully we can do it this way. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
We do have phones in Canada.
Oh, you heard that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, good day, sir. And yeah, here in the gym. So, or in the
Yeah.
sort of kind of appropriate.
Camera around. Let me see what's behind you.
Well, we've got an Airdyne bike there.
Uh-huh.
Maybe one of the better pieces of conditioning equipment. Can't use it right now because I've got some tendonitis going on. So right after I purchased it, we've got a stability ball, got a hex bar, deadlift, dumbbells, squat rack, a couple pieces of neck training equipment. So we got this, and we've got the iron neck here, which is a very cool piece of kit, although expensive. And then the dojo, some kettlebells, and then the dojo's out back. So that's in a separate building.
Okay. So, I'll ask you this question and then I'll do my official intro. The dojo is attached to your, because my question is, where do you teach? Okay,
that's a pretty common question. The answer is I don't have an official school. What complicates things is that I'm a firefighter. And so that's a 4-day on, 4-day off schedule with an 8-day rotation. And then you get called into work occasionally when there's an emergency.
Yeah.
And so that initial, I mean, there would be ways around it to have run a school. But if I was doing all the teaching, then it'd be, okay, well, guys, we're going to train this Tuesday afternoon, but next week, it's going to be Wednesday morning. The logistics of that were kind of daunting.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there'd be obvious ways to solve that. You could work with people. But I started doing the online stuff, and the online stuff is sort of my dojo. So I teach through there. My dojo there is for me to film in, and for me to train in. So I'm so busy with the various things going on in my life that there are people out there who don't have time and they don't have a place to, they have time, but they don't have a place to train. I'm the other way. I've got a place to train and so little time that it's actually easier to bring people in to train with me. It's a formula that works for now anyway.
Okay. All right. So everyone, welcome to episode 33 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. And my guest today is Stephan Kesting of Grapple Arts. Now, here's the thing, see? You just mentioned the online. Now, do you have any idea how long ago it was that I first became aware of you?
Well, I've been online since 2003. So if that's how you found out about me, sometime after 2003.
Yes, right. And here's why. I was deep. I mean, I was up to here in marketing and sales and advertising. And that's when I came across your e-course.
Okay.
And I was summarily impressed by everything that you were doing. And I was like, I gotta check this guy out. So I signed up for the course, got the DVDs and everything. So my first question is, was all of that marketing you?
Yes. Well, I'll say almost all of it, especially in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you remember my first instructionals, things like the omoplata and the dynamic guard or the roadmap, that was all my editing. And I was always very good at it.
That was on VHS.
It was on VHS, yeah. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. So I thought I'd, have standards and had people around me enforcing those standards as well, like saying, hey, that's not good enough. And me going, yeah, you're right. I kind of knew that the lighting on that was crap. So it wasn't unusual for me to spend like literally 500 hours to edit one VHS, the material that went into one VHS tape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot better of an editor now. And so now I do have the help of a couple days a week. And I've the audio editing too for my podcast. But I still know how to do most everything, and I often do everything. I'm kind of, my background is I'm half German, so I'm a control freak, and I want to know how to do everything. There are very few areas that I don't understand the basics of the business, so that I can then control it. And also, it's quality control, right? I mean, you get somebody who's good at editing, and they show an angle of a punch or something, or they show a jiu-jitsu move, or they film it, and because they don't do it necessarily, they miss the, and the hand goes here, but the video doesn't show the hand going there. So it's really, really for jiu-jitsu background, and then also to ultimately have final say in what goes out to the public and what doesn't.
Okay, hang on a second. You're starting to break. Give it a couple of seconds to clear up.
Move one more time, and we'll see if we can get a better signal. Yeah, this should work. Okay, we'll move to a different. In my office, I've got one Paleolithic painting. Here, I've got another one, so you can see the grate going on in the background. So, kind of appropriate, given what we're talking about martial arts. The original martial arts have been.
All right. Now I can't hear.
All right.
Okay.
Let's see if this works.
Okay.
Sure.
You know, coincidentally, coincidentally, something similar happened when I was on with Eric Paulson. He kept having to move around a lot to find the best spot. And was he not instrumental in getting you started online?
Oh, Eric is huge in getting me started online. He totally encouraged me to do it. I remember, the way it all started really is back in the day, a friend of mine got a VHS camera. So this is a camera that you actually bolted as tape onto the side of it. And I had some ideas about the omoplata, actually, or attacking the turtle. Attacking the turtle with the omoplata being a central part of that. And I filmed it just for friends, because I had friends who trained in different places. And this was the early days of jiu-jitsu when there wasn't really YouTube. And so I filmed it for a couple people, and I also sent it to him.
Right.
Like, oh, this is really good. You should sell it. And I was like, nah, the quality isn't there. And, who am I, right? I'm just some purple belt. And he's like, no. You're a purple belt, but you're also one of my instructors. And this is good material any way you slice it. So I was like, okay, well, if he thinks it's good, then I'll put it up there. And so I didn't release that. I clearly refilmed it and edited it and gave it titles and all that kind of stuff. And that, but that was the first step. So I owe Eric a huge debt of gratitude for, I guess, encouraging me to go forth and put my stuff forward. And I think I've gotten a little bit better at presentation since then. I would like to hope that if you do something for for 15 years, better
just a little. God, come on.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. So
only one.
So
yeah,
over.
Those,
even for the past 15.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Man.
Figure out how to invite me on my desktop. If any of the people accept your invitation on my desktop, then we'll have a good connection. Because right now I'm on my phone, as you can see from the jiggling around.
Yeah, no, actually, no. This works. iPhone, unless it's an iPad.
This is not an iPad. This is a phone. I can get an iPad.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it'll work iPhone to iPad or iPhone to iPhone. That's the only way it'll work.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep on muddling on through here then. Yeah, but I owe Eric a great debt of gratitude. And
okay, listen to this.
And I owe.
Listen to this. Now, I got a better idea. We'll break live off Facebook, and I'll send you a link to zoom.us, and we'll do it off camera, but it's a better connection than Facebook.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. I guess you have to catch this chat later.
No.
Dwight releases it.
Believe me, I know. Yeah. They'll just have to put up, with a couple of hours. So I'll send you on Facebook messaging. I'll send you the link to Zoom.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll finish up there.
Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you.
Okay.
Hello, Dwight. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't. Man, you're quick.
Sorry about that. That's really weird. We should have. I apologize. I tried on my phone. I tried on my computer.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it happens, but the day will come. The day will come when the technology is more than up to par.
Stefan proof.
Yeah. But what's interesting, because I actually did want to talk to you about this, the whole concept of getting started versus getting it perfect before you start.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Totally talk about that.
Yeah. So that's why whenever we have the technological snafu, I'm like, well, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was asking you before before Facebook crapped out on us was, who else do you owe a great debt to when it comes to martial art?
Right.
Who else was a major influence?
Well, we've already mentioned Eric Paulson. I mean, for many reasons. He was a combat submission wrestling, although that was embryonic when I first met him. He was more teaching Shuto. Of course, Danny Nosanto, gigantic influence. I met him when I was 17, I think. I'd been training traditional Kung Fu for 2.5 years and was, very strongly conflicted about what I was doing because it just didn't seem to translate at all into reality. And it was a very, very traditional mindset, and just keep on doing this kata, keep on doing this form long enough and do these drills mindlessly and just make sure that the index finger is exactly lined up here and the thumb is exactly there. And one day you two will develop magical powers. So then meeting Danny Nosanto was hugely influential. Philip Jelena, he's also a Junfan JKD instructor, very highly ranked Pikiti Tercia. He's a dog brother.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly trained Kajikembo with him, or I started training Kajikembo with him, but also did a lot of Filipino martial arts with him. He had a really good approach to the martial arts, very open-minded.
Yeah.
Really helped me develop grappling. I mean, that was back before the first UFC, but we did have access to the Gracie in action tapes.
Okay.
So we kind of knew that grappling was important. We kind of knew it was important to be on top of someone, smushing them. Man, we did not have much information about applying grappling in a fighting context when you're actually striking and punching and kicking and potentially biting. So that was the best information we had, and I'm happy to talk about that. Also, on the jiu-jitsu front, a lot of people have been super influential. Przemek Kropczynski, the guy I first started training officially in judo with.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a blue belt at the time, but that was back 15, it was more than 15 years ago, a long time ago. That was 97. Oh my God, 21 years ago.
Wow.
And so he was just a blue belt, but at the time, in the land of the blind, a one-eyed man was king, and he was a very good blue belt. Marcus Suarez, Carlson Gracie black belt, very highly ranked, very influential, and then tons of other people. And one thing we really got to give credit to is training partners. Yes, instructors are important.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose between a great instructor and crappy training partners, and great training partners and a crappy instructor, I would choose the second. I would choose great training partners, especially in the modern era.
Yeah.
You can figure out a hell of a lot on your own. Like, you really can, with books and videos and YouTube and DVD and streaming courses and apps.
But would you say that everything you just described, the blue belt level instructor,
Mhm.
the excellent training partners, the streaming, the technology, would you say that that applies more to jujitsu or to the grappling arts than to anything else?
Yeah, I would agree it applies a little bit more because it's a matter of degrees here.
Okay.
If you, let's say you're out in some village in northern Saskatchewan, right? That's about as remote as it gets.
Yeah.
Or you're 300 miles from any major city and you're in Ohio and you got your 4 buddies and you get a basement and you decide your little fight club. And I talk to people who do this.
Yeah.
They can, if they study and learn and train, develop a half decent level of rolling skill. But it's a little bit harder if they were just to put gloves on and headgear on and go out there in the backyard, just beat the living crap out of each other.
Right.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But it's harder.
Yeah.
In both those cases, what I always tell people is, yeah, great, have your training group, work with them, but then once in a while go off and calibrate yourself, at a quote real school. Go and make the journey and travel to the big city.
Yeah.
And train for a weekend. Go be coached by somebody who's much better than you, and then take it home and work with it. That is really the best answer for people who are isolated. Otherwise, right. I think there's an old there was a movie, Mystery Men, years ago. I don't watch a ton of movies now, but I remember Mystery Men because one of the characters had a superpower. The superpower was to turn invisible, but only when nobody's looking. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to be like King of the Hill in your little tiny world, like you've figured out stick fighting because you and your buddies, practice a whole bunch of disarms.
Right.
Or go out there and, even better, put on the fencing helmets, the gloves, the elbow pads, and go beat the crap out of each other. But you're missing giant pieces of the puzzle. So getting that infusion of knowledge and hands-on knowledge is useful. I think the reason it's easier, now that I think about it, the reason it's easier for jiu-jitsu than, say, bladed Filipino martial arts is because the feedback in jiu-jitsu is so instantaneous, right? Oh, crap, I did that and I got crushed. Oh,
right.
Crap, I did that and the guy took my arm.
Right.
Whereas with especially things like bladed weapons, there is just more inherently taking things on faith.
Okay.
And accepting what the received wisdom to some extent. Because the truth is, I've never taken a knife and jammed it into somebody's subclavian artery and rooted around behind the collarbone trying to find the artery. I'm assuming you never have either.
Right.
If you have, you're not at liberty to
talk. I won't talk about it.
So at some point we have to accept greater pieces of knowledge on faith coming down for those martial arts, where it is a little bit harder to train realistically. It's not impossible to train realistically. I propose to you that if we train with a shock knife, we're going to develop some pretty decent skills dealing with a real knife. Yeah. But it doesn't translate quite as well. And even so, you don't want to be that person off in their little bubble training some aspect, and because you've only got 3 training partners and because none of them are, to use a grappling analogy, none of them have an open guard to save their life. You get really good at beating guys up in closed guard because that's all you ever go against. Because there's a dip, right? Say you're really good at closed guard just because you and your buddies were out in the backyard punching each other in the head on the ground. To then develop an open guard, you're actually going to get worse for a time. There's going to be a dip because you're making a transition. You're adding something new on it. I mean, if you're really, really good at, French savate, say, and then you decide to go train Thai boxing, if you give it an honest attempt, probably your skills might go down a little bit. Just it's new, and you're going to have difficulty fusing the new knowledge in with the old knowledge. You'll be confused for a bit. Ultimately, you'll be better. Right. But when you incorporate new skills, you're not as good at them initially.
Yeah. So there's 2 things that come out of that, right? So that easily translatable factor, do you think that contributes to the phenomenal success of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu over the past 3 decades or so?
I think the testability of it. I think that the testability of it, where you can pretty much figure out whether a technique will work.
Yeah.
You know, not 100%. I mean, you show me some crazy technique that relies on crazy flexibility. I can't test that for you.
Right.
The fact I've been grappling for 30 years, training formally in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 21, been a black belt since 2006, means I can probably make a guess, but it's still only a guess. It's still only an educated guess. And if I say, no way is that technique ever going to work, some young punk is going to go out there next week in the Abu Dhabi trials and pull it off on somebody good, and I'll be left looking like an idiot. But I actually thought that the testability of it and the training against pressure would be the undoing of jiu-jitsu. I never thought in a million years it would become as popular as it is.
Yeah.
I thought it was much too ego-crushing because, I mean, the danger with Filipino martial arts, and I love Filipino martial arts, I'm not trying to pick a fight with it, but if you practice your contradas or whatever, it's still mostly theoretical, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine that I hit you in the eye here. I can imagine I hit you in the foot. I imagine that I stab you in the throat, that I'm catching your incoming blow and then counter you with a strike to the temple. I can imagine all that.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to test it.
Yeah.
You can get some simulation of that in sparring, but it's harder. It's also harder to put in as many rounds. I mean, if you do jiu-jitsu, you can put in thousands of rounds in a year. If you do Dog Brothers, at full intensity, I mean, you can do it with scaled back intensity, sure, like but it's harder, and the chance of getting damaged and beat up is higher.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that it was way too much ego-crushing an art to ever be popular. I'm completely wrong about that. I'm thrilled. I also never thought it'd be popular with women ever, and I'm wrong about that, and I'm thrilled. So I think that's the biggest success. Also, MMA. I mean, it's impossible to underestimate the importance of Hoist Gracie.
Yeah.
And the demonstration of the thing that everyone in the martial arts and even non-martial arts are hoping for, which is the ability to take out a bigger and stronger opponent, right? That is, it's in every movie, right? The big steroid monkey walks out.
Right.
The hero disables him with the secret nerve strike or whatever it is. So, rips out his jugular, goes full Dalton on him.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I gotta ask you something, because in doing my research, right, and also just from watching your videos, your sense of humor reminds me very much of what I would call a Minnesotan sense of humor.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean, so you remind me so much of Eric, Greg Nelson, and Rick Fay. So do you know, are Canadians Minnesotans or Minnesotans Canadians? Do you know?
I think we'll honorarily let parts of Minnesota into Canada just because of the geography.
Yeah.
And it's actually, a lot of Minnesota is on the Canadian Shield, which doesn't mean anything to most of your listeners, but it's very important to me because the Canadian Shield is this giant geological formation that's got some of the best canoeing on the planet. And consider how much of my youth and my adolescence was spent in canoes, mucking around in the bush.
Yeah.
How formative that was for me, and how excited I am now about finally getting to a place in life where I can maybe start doing that again. Last night I was poring over maps to go on about a 600, 700 mile journey next summer.
Wow.
So Minnesota's fantastic for canoeing. The Boundary Waters canoe area is right adjacent to Canada. So I think we'll give them a pass and let them in.
And tell me about the hiking.
Well, the hiking's a couple different things. First of all, I love being out in the wild, right? That's pretty obvious if I've spent that much time in the bush. So the longer hikes, I mean, it's just beautiful. I think fundamentally we're wired to, we were all apes on the savannah at some point looking at tons and tons of green.
Yeah.
And so I think that being out in the bush as opposed to in our concrete jungle or our little cubicles probably touches that part of our brain. If we're not so filled with anxiety, like, oh my God, I'm out here, I could be eaten by a wolf. I could be eaten by a wolf. I mean, there's like, your odds of being stung to death by a swarm of killer bees is way higher than being eaten by a wolf.
Are we also wired to wrestle?
Yes, I think so. I think that's totally undeniable. If you take a look at the huge number of cultures that have some form of indigenous wrestling, I think you'd almost have to argue that they're a form
Yeah.
And look at it this way. A friend of mine summed it up once. Here's the reason we're driving along in a car, me and a couple of buddies, and we're arguing about jiu-jitsu and whether it's better for self-defense than this and that. And one guy's going, well, you know, I'm making my argument that you can pressure test it and you can find out what works and what doesn't at a reasonably low cost without getting hit in the head. And my other friend's saying, no, it's the basic strategy. It's take him to the ground, get to the mount, punch him in the head, strangle him. This is a fundamental approach. And it's true. That's a pretty good strategy. And then my other buddy pipes up. He's been quiet. He's been listening. He goes, I just like to roll with my friends. I just like to roll around the ground with my friends. And we take a look at young little kids. What do? They roll around on the ground with friends.
Yes.
What do grown-ups do if they get sufficiently drunk? Well, they end up wrestling and roughhousing. And so I just do it without getting drunk, or because it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm half German and half Swiss, and Switzerland has its form of indigenous wrestling. Second last time I was in Switzerland visiting some family, there's the big 4-year tournament that they have, and the whole country had shut down to watch it. It's kind of like a sumo. Wow. It has the unfortunate name of Schwingen, which would imply certain things that aren't actually involved, to my knowledge. I don't think there's any wife swapping.
Okay. So now that so give me your heritage again. Your what and what?
Half Swiss, half German, and the German is half Polish and half Swiss. So German, Polish, Swiss, Euromut. So
that's why you have no difficulty pronouncing. Let me make sure I get it right. Csikszentmihalyi.
Oh, no. That guy's, man. Is he Czech or something? But
yeah.
Csikszentmihalyi. So that's only because I learned it's a chick and she sent me high. So
okay, I'll have to work it. I mean, because I've read the book, but I can't pronounce his name.
I don't think very many people can, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. You're talking about the book Flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an amazing book, really. I mean, it's and ultimately that is a state that we all aspire to as martial artists, is getting in that state where we're not thinking too much, or if we're thinking at a higher level. We're not thinking of, my hand goes here, oh my God, my hand goes there, and I better move my knee.
Yeah.
Or you're reacting instinctively, and if you are thinking, then it's at a higher level. Like, my breathing's good. I should every time he jabs, he's dropping that right hand. Interesting. I should maybe take advantage of that down the road. That's kind of a high level thinking, as opposed to the low level of like, what should I do?
Yeah. So that idea of flow for me was first encountered through Filipino Kali.
Okay.
More so than anything else. But because of Sifu Dan's influence, of course, you come to realize, well, yeah, maybe you encountered it initially in Kali, but it applies to everything.
Right.
Right. And so.
Where did you reach the flow? Was it during the Sinawali, a double stick drill?
It was actually during Sambrata.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pre-planned Sambrata or free flow?
Initially in the pre-planned.
Right.
But then it got to the point, and I'll tell you who was influential in that. It was Bert Richardson, right? Which is why I'll tell you this, just between the two of us, right? This is why we are in the JKD clan. We sit on top of this, the Acres of Diamonds story.
I might, if you start telling me. I'll
do a hatchet job on it. But essentially, it's this: it's the guy who leaves his own field, right, his own set of acres, and goes off to this other place or this other country to do the farming there. And while he's gone, somebody else comes on his discarded property and starts to farm it, knows better what he's doing, and discovers that it's a field of diamonds.
Okay.
But the guy who owned it initially had left. I think that in the JKD world, we have been standing in acres of diamonds for decades but we're somewhat myopic in our approach to it. And so we don't realize that if you, so for you, so like we were talking about flow, and I'm saying that I got it out of Kali, but look at who influenced me in it. Bert Richardson, who has influenced you in grappling, I'm sure.
Yep.
And who, before we got kicked off of Facebook, said to me that Stefan is a pioneer in grappling.
It is a weird, incestuous is the wrong word, but you know, when I talked to Burton the last time, I think he mentioned that he had bought my VHS tape. So we're going back to talking about the VHS tape on the knee bar. Oh no, Barry Yoshida was teaching something about controlling the knee bar position, and it was referencing something on a VHS tape that I produced. So I think I've taught Barry Yoshida one thing, and he's taught me, you know, hundreds of things by watching, including that no human being should be allowed to move like that or be allowed to do things like that with his legs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the amazing thing here is these conversations could have taken place in a village, in a castle, between a bunch of knights, between a bunch of samurai, in a village high in the Philippines, you know, in the distant, remote Philippines, going, hey, you know what really worked for me? It was parrying this way and putting my hand here, or putting my hand here, or doing this. But these global conversations, that never happened. I mean, the only way that would have happened really is if you'd written a book, or I'd written a book, or somebody had written a book and I'd read it. But the lag time there,
Right.
to write a book is 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
1 year, best case scenario.
Yeah.
So the pace of evolution is so rapid now. And, you know, I've learned tons of things from blue belts. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for somewhere between 21 and 30 years, depending how you count it. And, you know, I still learn things from working with white belts, working with blue belts. Sometimes that's just a better way to teach something.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to teach, half Granby guard retention move. You know, where you turn away and you kind of do a breakdancing thing. And I was working with a couple of white belts, and they just weren't getting it. So just working with them, I ended up developing sort of a protocol for teaching it, and I think it's going to work on other people when I try it out on them, including not super physically gifted and super flexible people. But I have actually learned something. Like, hey, when I do this choke, I like to do this, or here's my attack sequence.
Yeah.
And so I'm agnostic as to who I learn from. I mean, I prefer to learn from nice people. I prefer to learn from, you know, people I respect. But even people I don't respect, even people I don't like, they may still have something of value.
Yeah.
So, I'll take, I'll take it. I'll be agnostic about where I learned it from.
So let's say, right? Let's imagine this scenario. Somebody hears that I'm gonna dialogue with you on a program called the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, and he says to me, well, no, he doesn't say it to me because he would know better than to say it to me. But the guy says, why the hell is he talking to Stephan Kesting? He's from Grapple Arts.
Yeah.
So if you had to answer that question in terms of, well, why is the Jeet Kune Do guy talking to you? What would your answer be? Because and the reason why, the guy's not trying to be insulting, he just doesn't know your background like I do.
Sure. Well, clearly you didn't have any better guests for today. So you found me sitting in front of your computer, and we started chatting. So I think that's the real answer.
Okay.
We're ignoring the fact that this took like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to set up or something, and several failed attempts. Well, I actually consider myself a martial artist first, and a grappler second. Yeah. I think grappling is a martial art. It's also divided into different martial arts, but we'll call it a martial art, or a family of martial arts now. It's obviously what I do the most of now. And to be fair, it's probably what I enjoy the most, although I do enjoy the other aspects of the other martial arts as well. Yeah. It's not where I started. I started in Kung Fu. Actually, I started in Judo, rather. I did train in a whole bunch of systems of Kung Fu. Then I was very lucky at roughly the same time to meet Makoto Kabayama, who was a Paul Vunak guy. So
Oh, Kip.
no family. Nip, yeah.
Nip, yeah.
That was funny.
You trained with him?
Yeah, back in the day.
Oh, I thought Phil Gelinas was your start in the JKD world.
Not technically. No, he was a start of the Inosanto lineage. I'm going to call the Paul Vunak guys a separate lineage, or they're a different descendant of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we're getting really technical. No, Nip. Yeah, it's funny. I was in a martial arts store, and I knew the guy who worked there, and he points to this Asian guy wearing a leather jacket, decked out, looking like a tough guy. Because you should go introduce yourself to him because he's a JKD instructor. So I go over there, and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Stefan." Like a 17-year-old kid. He goes, "Hi, I'm Nip," and he's obviously Chinese or Asian or Japanese or something. I'm like, "Sorry?" He's like, "Nip." Like, how do you spell that? Because I'm 100% sure. He's N-I-P. Okay, so the guy's got a sense of humor right away. So, so I did train with him for about a year, on and off.
Okay.
It was, again, start of that revelation that there were other ways of doing martial arts than the traditional, thou shalt do this, because sensei or Sifu says something, which is incidentally where I get my allergy to titles. Like, I've not heard anybody complain about it, but I mean, Guru Dan Inosanto, Sifu Dan Inosanto, I respect that man to the ends of the earth. I've been training with him again since I was, good Lord, something like 30 years on and off. I'm an instructor under him, but in his absence, like, I don't refer to him personally, and I could get in trouble for this, but so be it, as Guru Dan Sifu, or Sifu Dan. I'm just allergic to titles.
Yeah.
I realize it just conveys respect. I reference him all the time. I think of it like a university professor. If you're talking about, Professor Bob Jones, if you're in his absence, you go, Bob Jones says this, or I really like Bob Jones's class. In the context of the class, you might go, "Excuse me, professor," or "Excuse me, sir."
Mm-hmm.
You might give that honorific there. Yeah. And I think really it's probably my hang.
You know what that reminds me of? I'm sorry to interrupt you. It reminds me, I just watched a press conference with Donald Trump. I'm pretty sure, so everybody refers to him in the press conference as Mr. President. I'm pretty sure outside of the press conference, they do not.
Yeah, they probably don't, and what they probably use, or at least a significant 60% of them, they probably can't be printed in the press that they're using. But that's different because those people probably don't respect Donald Trump, and I respect the absolute hell out of Dan Inosanto. I just think the years in the traditional martial arts, and also looking at how cults work and looking at how I don't know, everything from the people who run martial arts schools who shouldn't run martial arts schools. Typically,
well, you're a born contrarian, aren't you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm a skeptic. Yeah, I think I would probably be classified as a skeptic. I think that anointing with a title, that then like when people sign, I get conversations I get emails sent from Sijo Bob Smith, or I forget what the Korean title for like founder of the style is, or
Sabam Nim or something. Yeah.
Supreme Grandmaster, this and that. Like, no, like, what you do should be enough. So I totally sidetracked myself there. We were talking about influences, and oh
no, we were talking about that back on Facebook. Don't worry about it.
All right, okay. I have been hitting the head a whole number of times. Why is a grappling guy qualified to talk about Jeet Kune Do?
Yeah.
Huge, giant fan of Bruce Lee. Bought every book that he ever wrote or was written in his name or published in his name.
Yeah.
Started reading it back in my teens. I'm an instructor under Dan Inosanto. I think the weird thing is that the Jeet Kune Do approach is now so mainstream, or parts of it are so mainstream, that it's almost taken for granted. Like, what are these guys carrying on about cross training? Man, I wrestle and I box and I train Thai boxing and I I do 10th planet jiu-jitsu, and sometimes I go roll with, I don't know, this other dude in the gi.
Yeah.
Like, why is this a big deal? Well, it isn't so much of a big deal most of the time now, although some people still lose their mind if you train outside the clan, which is another thing that drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a huge deal. Like, I remember being in Kung Fu class and being told, thou shalt not share this. Forget sharing this with people outside the school. You've been taught the tiger crane form. I think that was, you've been taught the tiger crane form. You're not going to show this to anybody inside the school, leave alone outside the school. If somebody hasn't learned the next 4 moves of this set yet, don't you dare go show it to them, because it's only ours to share.
Wow.
So, and there are still people out there who have that mentality, and there are people who, thou shalt only train at my school.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. I mean, anyone, if you have one of these devices, then you really can access almost any information out there.
Yes.
You got to filter through it.
Yeah.
So the instructor's role becomes partially a filter, going, come on, man, you're not nearly flexible enough to do that move. Or, no, the guys filming that really don't know what they're doing. So there's a filter, the unlimited information requiring a filter.
Yeah.
But the information is out there now. So
Having access to one of these and somebody telling you, yeah, but I can't this and I can't that. Does that piss the hell out of you?
what do you mean I can't figure out a way to solve this?
Yeah. I mean, because the young people today, right, who have access to just about every type of knowledge.
Yeah.
But all they'll do is the Instagram, and I mean, I shouldn't say this to you because you are a master of social media and online marketing, so I probably should not say anything derogatory about that stuff.
Go ahead. I'll probably insult you by accident later.
It just makes no sense to me that they are not working overtime to increase the store of their knowledge. Instead, I don't have to know anything. I can just look it up. Yeah, you can look at it, but they retain nothing.
For sure. Like, this is a great tool, incredible tool. Just like a library is an incredible tool. You don't read a book and then you don't put it in that, like this, watching a technique here doesn't make the technique yours. If we're talking in martial arts context, it's training it, it's trying it, hopefully field testing it, that makes it yours. At that point, it's yours. Again, I'm in agreement, very much so, with Dan Inosanto. Steal from everybody, but try to give credit.
Yes.
So if I see a great technique by, I don't know, pick a name, Salo Ribeiro, and I teach it, I try, if I can remember where I learned it from, and that's the rub. If I can remember where I learned it from, I'll try to give credit. I saw this guy do this, I saw this other guy do this, and here's how I've changed it. So steal from everybody, but give credit.
Yeah.
And it's not yours till you put it into action. And I mean, there's also videos on riding a bike. There's also videos on kite surfing, right? I watched lots of videos on kite surfing before I went out kite surfing this summer for the first time.
Yeah.
And I spent many quality hours being waterboarded through the ocean, getting dragged, eating wave after wave after wave,
right,
of it not working. So there's knowing knowledge and there's being able to internalize knowledge. But that's also, I mean, sure, I'll watch stuff here for entertainment that I'm never going to use, that I'm probably never going to have time to drill, and so some of it you just have to. I mean, there is an entertainment value there of seeing. I don't know. Take a look at this really, really cool fusion of Greco-Roman wrestling and Wing Chun trapping. I'm making that up. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But assuming that it's out there, you can watch it and go, man, that's fun to watch. but it's not for me, or it's not for me at this time. I'm just going to stick with what I know. And you have to, because if you try to train, I don't know, there's all the statistics about how much new video is out there every minute that goes on, how much video is on YouTube. I imagine that you could train for 4 hours a day trying to do each new martial art technique that ends up on YouTube,
Right.
3 times, and you wouldn't have enough hours in the day to just do 3 reps of every new technique that's out there.
You know, that vastness to which you're referring, again, for me, I see the vastness, or first saw it, which is probably why I spend more time in the Junfan and the Kali than I do in the grappling. But I'll tell you this, you know, I don't think I've ever said this in public. You know why I'm afraid of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Injuries?
No. I am afraid I will become obsessed with it because I see the vastness in it. So let's say it's 1983 and I hear Dan Inosanto say, after you inside deflect angle 1, now you can come up with as many as 36 follow-up techniques from that position. In I forget what year it was that we brought John Jack down to Miami, John Jack Machado. And I felt the same thing. And I go, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Develop a very simple game enough to get you by. It's really the only answer. And to be fair, that's what the world champions do as well. I mean, let's take judo, where this has been quantified. You've got 60 to 70 core throws in judo, and probably hundreds and hundreds of variations of it grown out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pick a number. I don't know how finely we want to split, but maybe 1,000 throws or 1,000 major variations. You can do Uchimata moving left, Uchimata moving right, one-handed Uchimata, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But the world champions have 2, 3, or maybe 4 judo throws.
Right.
So they strip all that knowledge, all that possibility down to just a few.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu is a little bit more variable, but you take a look at Bernardo Faria is a good friend of mine. Half guard, deep half guard, and knee shield guard.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always ends up doing the same kind of one or two sweeps, knocking the guy backwards, rolling the guy forwards, passing with the over-under. 1 guard pass, more or less. I mean, yeah, he knows more.
Yeah.
But in terms of what he focused on, 1 guard pass, couple of guard positions, and then I'm trying to think of the number of finishes he uses. I mean, it's not an infinite number.
Right.
And, you know, if you asked him to do spider guard, which is a really super complex position, he might be able to show you the basics, but that's it. And he's never going to use it in real life if he's goofing around with a white belt, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? He wants to play.
Yeah.
But now it's a serious match, and there's money on the line, or honor, or pride, or a medal, or whatever. No, he's not going to use that. So it is a gigantic area. But the rub is, what you need to do can be small, but what you need to know needs to be big. Because you can legitimately face everything in that giant, I'm trying to make a big circle here in the video, everything here, even though you're just doing this. And Marcelo Garcia is another example. I mean, not a super complex game,
right?
But just able to impose his game on everybody else's kind of game.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I mean, the classic Bruce Lee quote, I fear not the man who knows 10,000 kicks, but the man who's practiced 1 kick 10,000 times.
Yeah.
In a grappling context, I fear not the man who knows 10,000 guard passes or 10,000 submissions. I fear the man who's figured out 10,000 ways to get into that 1 guard pass.
Yeah. You know, that Bruce Lee quote, I debunked it because, because there's not 10,000 kicks.
The spirit of the saying, I'm going to choose to believe. That,
hey, you know who proved that? Bill Wallace did, Superfoot Wallace.
3
The
kicks.
guy had a left leg and he had 3 kicks and dominated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same principle.
So you must have practiced each one of those kicks 3,333 times.
There you go. So I use your self-defense videos in my class settings.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Okay. Because to me, those are extremely valuable. So I was watching another one of your videos. It was with it was the guy that wears the red polo shirt. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but it's an outdoor setting, and he asks you, like, let's say, how to defend against the headlock, like the stand-in headlock.
Oh, right.
Right? And you start out by telling him that you have before, during, and after.
And that sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That's both Danny DeSanto and Eric Paulson.
Okay. So all right. So if you ever find this useful, right, I'll tell you how we do that at not at my school, but with my little group now.
Sure.
When somebody says, well, how do you counter such and such? We go, well, you have to go to Bermuda. They go, what? I go, yeah, you got to go to Bermuda. So here's what it is. In the airline industry, the airport code for Bermuda is BDA.
Oh, okay.
Right?
During, after.
Yeah. So that's how we break it down. So you talk to any of my students and you ask them a question about countering something. They go, oh, you just got to go to Bermuda. And that's one of the ways that we analyze everything.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, what about starting at the after and working your way backwards? Is there value to that? Starting in the worst position possible and working backwards.
Are we talking just in a grappling context?
Yeah, let's limit it to grappling.
There. I think for a beginner, that's extremely useful. I think for a beginner, because let's say escape from mount. You're teaching women or you're teaching guy, like being trapped in the mount is terrifying and it's a terrible position. And they don't have enough of the rest of their game isn't sufficiently well developed to stop them from getting there. And just mentally knowing, excuse me, either that got something in my throat or I'm hitting puberty. Knowing that they have an answer in the worst case scenario is very empowering.
Yeah.
Now, if I was training a competitor, we wouldn't spend most of the time there. We would spend most of the time in the before phase, just because that's where most of the battle is going to be.
Got it.
So I think, Kajukenbo, we used to do a drill, and also actually Eric Paulson also had a variation of this drill, where you get hit and then you close the distance, you get hit, you hit. Eric Paulson has a drill where you're picking off shots on the top of your head. Your footwork has failed you, your hand movement has failed you, your head movement has failed you, you're going to get hit. Is it better to get hit in the nose or get hit in the forehead? Neither is good, but one is worse than the other. Right?
Yeah.
Getting hit in the forehead, that's especially me with my Cro-Magnon brow, that's a lot of bone there, and I'm probably not as likely to get knocked out. So that's kind of the after or during after phase of the counter. But it's probably better to spend most of your time drilling the before phase, right? Here's how to not get hit.
Right.
In terms of worst case scenario, yes, I think it's actually very empowering for a beginner to be able to get out of terrible positions, or at least to keep on fighting, as opposed to just losing all hope. Because if you lose all hope, then you also get exhausted much, much quicker. So especially in a self-defense situation, you could conceivably win being trapped on the bottom of a mount, just staying there for long enough for help to arrive. So not getting knocked out for long enough, even though you're in a terrible position. If you can not get hit too badly you not get stabbed, you not get choked, you not get eye gouged too badly. Stabbed only a little bit. I don't think that one applies. But surviving, right? There's a saying in jiu-jitsu, survive first, win later.
Right.
And I think it's very, very true. So what brings you to this focus on surviving the worst case scenario? So what's the thinking behind that?
Because I, like you said earlier, it's scary to be in those positions. And in martial art training, in martial art teaching, we talk a lot about empowering people. And I am fascinated by the effect that grappling, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has had on the world. I am absolutely fascinated by why that is, right? So when we started paying more attention to it, and I looked at your stuff, I go, this is what we need to do. Start at the end and work backwards. See, it's so for example, because I applied that from jiu-jitsu, it also affected my trap in hands. Because what do we do in trap in hands? We do the reference point and then we go from there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when's that gonna happen?
Very transiently,
Yeah.
very rarely.
Right? And so I broke it down this way. I would tell people in the old days exactly what was said to me, that it's not that you fight like that. I put it in historical context. So maybe you throw a punch and somebody blocks, you know, the old, yeah. And so now you have a reference point that you can trap against. But I analyzed it further. Why am I punching? If I'm truly JKD, why am I punching in a way that a guy can just get that block really easily? So I changed the whole approach to trapping. You see, and it's now based on something that Burt Richardson talked about also, being able to pull it off in sparring. Well, in sparring, I'm not going to throw something out there and hope that the guy goes like this. I let him come to me and then pull off the trap while he's trying to hit me. Because again, in a self-defense thing, I'm not necessarily going to start the fight. My self-defense is based on somebody trying to get to me. So I'll use the trapping against him that way. So
The way of the intercepting trap.
so it's like I talked about just before I came on with you. I did the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, and today's topic was UFC/MMA fighters or champions who have trained in Jeet Kune Do. So I went through. I'll send you the link to it. I went through a whole list of people, and Burt Richardson and Greg Nelson, they chimed in on the discussion and just talked. I mean, some, as I think Michael Brown said, just spitting knowledge, as they say, right? So so what I was saying to you earlier is, actually, I didn't say this to you earlier, but it's one of my questions for you. And it's based on my fascination with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the world's fascination with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so it has become this thing where it is the most effective art in the world. So your reaction to that statement is what?
I'd say is a very gross generalization. There's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say it's 100% true,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to then define effective. So you have to define effective, you have to define the rule set, you have to define who it is that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take into account, are we talking with weapons, without weapons? Are we talking about The environment is super important, but I could certainly see a subset of those conditions where that would be true.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly effective martial art, mostly because of the training method. I mean, the techniques are great, but the traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu techniques are not that dissimilar, at least at a fundamental level. But the training methods are so different that if I had to pick a 5th Dan Japanese jiu-jitsu guy to go against a decent purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you just lock. If our terms of reference are lock him in a room, see who comes out. Lock him in a room, see who's conscious 30 minutes later.
Yeah. You want to get a sip of water or something?
You know what? Thank you for prompting me. Thanks, Mom. I just get so choked up talking about this. So yeah, I think it is very, very effective because the training method is fairly realistic.
Yeah.
And it's fairly achievable for most people. I would say that, training like Georges St. Pierre probably results in a more effective fighter. But can the average person train like Georges St. Pierre? I don't think so. Is the average person willing to take, for nothing, just that level of brain damage?
Yeah.
Going to take shots to the head repeatedly on the ground, standing in the clinch. So I would argue that results in a more effective fighter. But the price to pay is higher.
Yeah.
And that's just in a purely unarmed context.
Right.
Now we start adding weapons and knives and sticks and guns into that conversation. It becomes a pretty complicated conversation.
Yeah. If the average person...
A damn good martial art. How's that? And it's very likely to translate to self-defense situations, and the confidence to deal with situations, and a basic set of skills and strategies, like the basic strategy of take the guy down or start out underneath him, get to the top, either take him down or sweep him, control the top, punish him if necessary, wait till he turns and choke him out. Like that's a pretty powerful strategy. It's pretty hard to beat. There are ways to beat it, of course, but they require a ton of training.
Right. Now, let's talk average person and what you just said about its efficacy because of its training method. What are the elements of that training method that you would break down that an average person could understand?
Okay. The most effective part of the training method is the application against resistance. I mean, obviously there's drilling, if we're talking just a jiu-jitsu context. Today we're talking about a technique where the person's trying to choke you, you use a closed guard, you move them away, you move their hands across, you apply a head and arm choke from the guard, you sweep them, and you come to the top. Great. We can drill that. And we can drill that 50 times, 100 times, 10,000 times, and we'll get better at that motion. But just training the movement is never enough, or almost never enough.
Right.
You really need to train it against resistance. You need to have the opportunity to deal with pressure. You're trying to head and arm choke somebody who's really trying to head and arm choke you at the same time. Once you have the ability to deal with pressure and the ability to do things to people who really don't want you to do it to them, then you have what I call a delivery system. Then if you want to do the super deadly techniques, you want to do the eye gouging, you want to do the biting, you want to do the throat rip, you can have a lot of faith in your ability to get there because you can control the position. If you can get to a good position on me, my own strategy is if I'm trapped in, if I'm one of these guys, if I was trapped on the ground, I'd simply rip the balls off and I would bite them. Great. Like, those are valid techniques. I wouldn't necessarily count on pain working every time.
Yeah.
But because people do amazing things with pain tolerance. I mean, I'm a firefighter in my day job, and I've seen people shot through the leg, like entry wound in the front of their leg, exit wound on the back of their leg,
Mhm.
walking around the jewelry store where they were just robbed. They're living it, but no matter how much you practice your diamond penetrating finger technique, you're never going to be able to put that all the way through someone's leg,
Right.
in one side, out the other. You're not going to be able to do it. And this guy just had a hole put through his leg and he's walking around. So people can deal with that, then they can deal with your bite. If you're biting my ribs as I've got you inside mount, it'll just make me angrier.
Right.
And the bottom line is I'm in a much, much, much better position to bite you than you are to bite me.
Mm-hmm.
It might work. It's a Hail Mary for you to do on the bottom. But
Mhm.
man, if you ever escalated the fight, if, you know, like now after I choke, and I'm sorry, I started out with this analogy with me and you, so I'm going to continue. If I manage to choke you out, I might not stop if you've just taken a big hunk out of my ribs. Or you might get, you know, if somebody not as nice as me, you might get curb stomped or have your head beaten against the pavement, right? And you've just made the other person way, way, way madder because you violate social norms.
Yeah.
So once you have the training of the positions on the ground, you can add other delivery mechanisms to it. I mean, if you can do the reasonably technically complex motion of getting from the mount into the armbar, say,
Mm-hmm.
that's a series of steps, each one of which can be countered. And if you can keep your head together under pressure, now you're mounted on this great big guy who can bench press 300 pounds and you're there and you're stabilizing and you move into the armbar and you get the armbar, you've just demonstrated a complex skill under pressure with an adrenaline rush. And that in itself is a valuable skill, right? I mean, it's probably why when soldiers are reloading their gun in the army, there's people yelling at them, there's explosions going off. They've taken what's a simple activity, taking bullets, putting them into a magazine, or putting a magazine, putting in the gun.
Yeah.
And now made it much more stressful.
Yeah.
So just being able to function under stress is a huge martial arts ability.
Yeah. Did anything academically set you up for where you are today and who you are today?
Well, I have a bachelor's of biology.
Okay.
That's ecology, evolution, animal behavior. So the animal behavior part of that applies quite strongly because we are, you know, you and me, baby, we ain't nothing but mammals. We really are just hairless monkeys. And all those survival traits that served us well out on savannah are still there today, right? That's why we have fight or flight reflex. Once upon a time, we used to run away from the giant woolly rhino that was trying to stomp us into the ground. Now we have that response when we can't get the printer at work to work, and we feel like the printer throwing it out the window.
Yeah.
It's an inappropriate response because it's not going to make the printer work.
Yeah.
You will not be able to raise your way to getting that goddamn printer to work. But we still have those reflexes. And then I did a master's in botany, and honestly, I don't think that there's much direct applicability, except it gave me a schema for analytical thinking and to be skeptical. I think, you know, you go to a presentation. When I was doing my undergrad, we used to go to these presentations, right? Every lunchtime, some guy would come in from out of town, talk about what his master's thesis was about. And it was a sport, kind of a good-natured sport most of the time, to try and pick them apart. But did you consider when you did those statistical analyses, did you correct it for this thing? Did you do a Boniferoni correction on that or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You try and catch the guy out. And it created a rigor. And now when I see, I mean, the classic example is essential oils or crystals, people talking about essential oils or crystals.
Yeah.
There's just not that level of, or martial arts.
Right.
There's not that level of skepticism
There's that
applied. So I mean, the most obvious whipping boy, there are those incredible videos of the Kung Fu masters blasting people with chi or, defeating 25 of their students who attack them one at a time. But there are other logical errors that can be made even within highly testable things, right? I mean, if you see this in MMA all the time, one guy does an amazing spinning elbow, next thing, everybody's working the spinning elbow because clearly it worked against this guy. Or another logical error is this guy's won 20 fights and he loses a fight and he's a bum. No, It's understanding of statistics that, you know, every time you go out there, there's a chance you're going to win, there's a chance you're going to lose. Winning 19 fights in a row is a pretty good indicator you're going to win 20th, but it doesn't mean that if you lose, it's such a variable sport. There's so many ways you can lose in MMA that it doesn't really speak. That by itself is not an indicator of anything.
Okay. All right. Left field question.
Sure.
What do you think is the origin of the pyramids in Egypt?
I go with the conventional answer that
You know where I got that from, right?
oh, is that from the whole sinking of Atlantis and the megalithic stone structure?
No, it's from an episode of your podcast, which, by the way, why is it called The Strenuous Life? So answer the pyramid question, and then and then tell me why it's called Strenuous Life.
This crazy story that Atlantis sank, and these people who had knowledge of building giant megalithic structures first went to Turkey, where they built that megalithic structure 10,000 years ago, and then then this knowledge was passed on from priest to 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 priest for 6,000 or 8,000 years. And all of a sudden they build the pyramids in Egypt and they build the Sphinx. Is insane. Like, if you watch how martial arts is transmitted, and I watch this person teach this person teach this person, to watch it evolve, because it's never the same.
Right.
It always changes.
Yep.
Or any other piece of knowledge. Like, if I told you exactly how to, I don't know, to frame a house, you're going to take 2x4s, you're going to nail them together, you're going to have sill plates here, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, but you can't actually build them. You're not allowed to build it, Dwight, and you need to pass this knowledge on to the next person, and you need to pass this on to the next person. Forget the rest of that. Forget drywalling, forget electricity, forget plumbing, forget flooring, forget roofing, just framing.
Mm-hmm.
You pass that on for, let's say you live 50 years, and you pass this on, what did I say, 6,000 years? So you pass this on, oh good Lord, my math is failing me, 6,000 years for 120 generations. You're telling me the guy, your 120th disciple, will produce anything like a house? Zero chance. Absolutely zero chance. It's not even possible if you tell one person and they never build a house to build a house. So there's my pyramid rant.
There you go.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this or not, but insert swear word here. No swear word way.
Okay. Now, The Strenuous Life.
Yeah.
Whence cometh that name, that title?
It comes from Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States, and he's known for his amazing speeches. Unfortunately, the Strenuous Life speech is a speech about how it's better to be, that he doesn't wish for ease. He doesn't wish for an easy life, on the couch watching Netflix and eating Cheetos, because I'm pretty sure there was Netflix back in the day of Teddy Roosevelt's life. He's looking for challenges. Unfortunately, as it turns out, that speech was trying to fire up the U.S. population to go invade the Philippines. So there's a bad side to that, of course. But it's, I think, because I like to have a lot of guests on my podcast as well.
Yeah.
And in almost all of them exemplify some aspect of the Strenuous Life. I've had, champion kiteboarders on it. We had Will Gadd, the guy who ice climbed Niagara Falls in the winter. Les Stroud, Survivor Man. Alan Belcher, UFC fighter. Bernardo Faria. We've had lots of jiu-jitsu MMA guys on it, or I've had lots of jiu-jitsu MMA guys, all of whom have decided that it's sort of the meaning of life is in part to push.
Yeah.
To try existing in the strenuous zone as opposed to the comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's super cheesy saying that unfortunately is true.
But it's true. Right.
That there's no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. I mean, that's should be, a little floral Instagram picture by some motivational guru, but it's true. There really is no growth in the comfort zone, and there's no comfort in the growth zone. It's difficult. So that's where the name comes from.
I like it. I like it.
Speaking of other Teddy Roosevelt quotes, the one I often send to friends is the man in the arena quote, right? the credit doesn't go to the person spectating or the armchair quarterback. It goes to the person who's actually in the arena, win or lose, covered in blood, covered with sweat, who tried and failed. But that guy who tried and failed still deserves 1,000 times more credit than the person who never went and did nothing. So,
back in the early days of the UFC and what have you, I had a theory on another part of my theory on its popularity. So what I would do is I'd say to people, okay, I'll give you the actor's name and you yell out the movie that comes to mind, right? So
I'm not really good at this game, but go ahead.
Okay, so I say Russell Crowe.
Gladiator.
That's it. Why? Because it's
a
about
great movie and it's an archetypal story.
Yes.
And did you hear that they're making Gladiator 2?
Why?
Because Gladiator 1 made money, is the answer.
Yeah, but you know what they're going to do? They're going to make sure that there's a transgender in it. They're going to make sure.
Somebody who identifies as a potato.
Yeah, they have to.
It's even worse than that. It's even, Nick Cave, the musician, apparently had a script where Russell Crowe was a time traveler. So somehow Gladiator, Maximus, Russell Crowe was a time traveler, and this allowed then for Gladiator 2. I think they killed that script.
Thank God.
Yeah, fortunately. But yeah, I mean, clearly Gladiator 1 made a boatload of money. It's an archetypal story, right? I mean, we like boxing for the same reason, even though I feel guilty watching boxing.
Exactly. And so the UFC is an example of that archetypal story because it is two gladiators going at each other. And what are they involved in? They're involved in that, like we talked about grappling being so elemental in our psyches.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was one of the things that I worked out. So I know that that you're on the clock. So I just have maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and it's really just about you. How do you save your body for jiu-jitsu?
Well, I've been doing it a long time. So as Indiana Jones said, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And there's a lot of mileage here. I'm almost 49. So I definitely feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I am much more careful. Actually, there's I have enough time to go into to try and come up with the various areas of this. Number one is conditioning.
Yeah.
I think conditioning is actually more important than jiu-jitsu training for jiu-jitsu and martial arts training in general once you get over a certain age. I mean, 20-year-olds, if they're reasonably active, can do anything. They can eat chips, hot dogs, party all night, get 3 hours of sleep, have a Red Bull in the morning, and go train.
Yeah.
But this is like saying, this credit card's amazing. I can just go buy whatever I want. I just go in there and I can buy it. And then I can go here and I can buy this. It's true, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But the bill catches up with you.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've over a certain age, I don't know exactly what that age is. It's a gradual thing. Your ability to train is dependent on the state of your ability to drive fast is dependent on how good your chassis is.
Okay.
Your ability to navigate cones on a race course, your wheels can't come off. So I'd say basic weight training and basic cardio is more important than technique training.
Yeah.
Because it holds your body together for the technique training. You have to do more technique training if you're not injured all the time. Also, quite frankly, fortunately, most of us live in a society where the biggest chance of us dying is heart attack, stroke, cancer, and neurodegenerative stuff. So having amazing technique, having amazing, double stick disarms. I mean, in as much as double stick disarms work,
right? Yeah.
I mean, really the best double stick disarm is to hit the hand really hard. Having amazing hand targeting skills at largo mano range. That's great, but what are the odds that you're going to be walking down the street and somebody's going to jump out at you with a 2x4 and you're going to pick up a fire iron that was left there and hit their hand? it's pretty low. It's not zero, but it's low.
Right.
The odds of the same person dying of a heart attack and stroke or cancer or getting Alzheimer's are much higher. And so exercise is actually the most important kind of self-defense that you can do. So I know that's probably not the answer that people are looking for, but I think it's true. I mean, if you live in South Africa, I'm sorry. If you live in a some super dangerous place, that might not apply. But for most of the people watching this, the odds that you kill yourself are much higher than somebody else killing you.
Yeah.
So taking care of that.
How's the keto dieting going?
Well, the next thing, so part of it, there's exercise and there's diet. Most people eat like crap. It's true. There's tons of different diets. And what diet you should be on, that's variable. We can argue about it, but anything that reduces your blood sugar is good, right? You don't want your blood sugar to be high. You don't want to be pre-diabetic. There's a bunch of blood work that you can get that tells you kind of what you need to work on. And most North Americans, by the time they get to their 40s or 50s, their blood sugar is going to be creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
And that nothing good happens there. Nothing. It doesn't help. And there's no medical condition ever where they say, you really should be getting up to pre-diabetic blood level. Like, no, you're not supposed to. So pretty much what everybody agrees on is eat tons of vegetables. So regardless of what kind of diet I'm on, I'm mostly a vegetarian in the sense that I eat mostly vegetables. And yeah, I might eat meat. What I'm experimenting now with, what you referred to as the whole keto diet, partially to break myself from my sweet tooth. I do have a wicked sweet tooth. I mean, dark chocolate, you could put an unlimited amount of dark chocolate in front of me, and I would go through it. I tested myself. I think I could probably make it through a kilogram or 2.2 pounds of chocolate in a day if left to my own devices. So clearly this is a problem. The keto experiment, I'll call it an experiment right now, is an attempt to break the sweet tooth and see how I function on fat as opposed to carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of variability. Like just with any diet, what works for you might not work for me.
Mm-hmm.
We've got different genetics. I don't really believe in the eat right for your type, the eat right for your blood type thing. I haven't looked into the data too much, but we can agree that what works for you might not work for me. Maybe you exercise more than I do. Maybe I've got a health condition. Maybe you come from, was it Trinidad? Is that right?
That's where I was born. I grew up in Barbados. Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not the only one who does research. Know your enemy and you will defeat, you'll never go undefeated. I think I screwed that up. So what I'm doing is I'm trying full-on keto, full saturated fat, coconut milk. After we get off here, I'm going to blend together whipped cream and coconut milk, add egg yolk, throw some veggies in there, blend it up, and that'll be my lunch.
Okay.
Now, obviously, there's a risk there of saturated fat and clogging my arteries and dying of a heart attack and stroke. So I'm going to try it for a month. And then I went to my doctor and I said, look, I'm trying this as an experiment. He's like, oh, no, don't do it. I'm like, I'm going to try it, but can we do a full blood panel, after a month and after 2 months so we can actually see what's going on?
Yeah.
Maybe all those people who are reporting that their LDL to HDL ratios improved after they went on keto, maybe they have different genes than I do. We don't know.
Right.
Maybe it'll work for me because I exercise and they don't, or you just never know.
Yeah. So
try it and test, and don't try it for years because then by the time you get around to testing, you might be dead.
Yeah.
Right. So experiment.
That try it and test it thing sounds like jujitsu to me.
Yeah. And actually, the first person who ever used that wording in the context of martial arts, to my knowledge, was Dan Inosanto. Again, saying, I think it was in the context of the crossed ankle lock, when someone is in rear mount on you versus the rear naked choke. He's like, when we tested this at the academy, and he had an answer, but what impressed me was the fact that they went out and tested it. Like, that makes so much sense that I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. Will the rear naked choke beat the crossed ankle lock? I don't know. but let's find out. It's easy to test.
Yeah.
A little bit harder to test with edged weapons. I'll grant you that. A little bit harder to test with firearms. I'll grant you that. Jiu-jitsu or Shuto, shoot wrestling, which was the context that we were talking about it in, very easy to test. So, yeah, so the keto thing's going well, but I don't know if I'm doing damage to myself. And if we ever have another conversation, I'll be able to tell you the results of the blood work, because I'm going to go get it done in a couple of weeks.
All right, cool.
Finally, how not to get injured. I'll just try and tear through these quick here. Pick your training partners super carefully. I am so picky about training. I used to go with anybody, right? Big or smaller, that crazy guy, you know, the guy who grabs something and jumps into it, the guy who watched a video on heel hooks on the YouTube and decides to do it on you in gi class, the guy who does dynamic flying neck cranks. I used to go with them all, and I think it was a good developmental thing. It's kind of like doing a lot of hard sparring, but I don't do that anymore. No way. I'm really, like, I don't want my training cut short by some moron doing something crazy. And I realized I would actually be better if I still went with anybody. I'd either be better or I'd be broken.
Yes.
But I'm not willing to take that risk. I'm not willing to take that 50% chance per year.
That's the episode you did about the downside of testing, was it?
It's the downside of going full force all the time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm very careful of who I go with now, train with, and spar with. And I recognize there's some limitations to that, but at this point, I have to be careful. Another important aspect is paying as much attention to recovery as you do to training. So how do you for example, are you hydrating well? If you train and you're not hydrated, you're asking for injuries. Do you feed? Do you refuel right after you train? If you don't do that, you're asking for injuries. Are you getting enough sleep? You might have been able to get away with 6 hours or 5 hours of sleep a night when you're back in college because you were young. But I can't do that anymore because then I break or I get sick. Like if I increase my training and don't increase my sleep, I get sick. And guys like, out there, Jocko Willink, I sleep 2 hours a night and I'm fine and you all should sleep 2 hours a night. Which, to be fair, he doesn't say. But that works for his genetics, doesn't work for mine. I've tried it. I've experimented with it. I get sick. This is something I'm using a lot now. I built it myself.
I see that.
I've been dealing with tendinitis.
Do you plan to market that?
People already have. You can go on Amazon. You can buy the $800 version.
Right.
You can buy the, I think they sell attachments for $50 that you can plug into a jigsaw or a sawzall. I just made that out of a lacrosse ball. I took the sawzall blade, ground it down, snapped the tip off, cut a bunch of holes into a lacrosse ball, glued it in there. It works fine. Yeah. So it was a half-hour work and a fun little experiment. And I made it at the fire hall, so you can imagine the comments I got. Something like that. Believe me, there was no shortage of suggestions. What to do with such a machine. What I should be doing, what I was probably doing with it in the privacy of my soundproof dojo. Building mental toughness is the result of that. So yeah, just taking consistent steps to try to rehab existing injuries, prehab stuff, so fix it before it happens, work around injuries. Really, you can work through injuries for sure. I have, and they'll come back to haunt you. I'm here from the future to tell all the young punks listening to this that you don't take care of now will come back to haunt you in the future, for sure.
Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so the best places to find you are grapplearts.com.
Sure.
Is there still anything up at grapplearts.tv?
There is. I've migrated that onto grapplearts.com. That was grapplearts.tv was for the Black Belts Concepts course that I put out.
Okay.
And then I decided to put it all onto grapplearts.com. So on grapplearts.com, I've got links to the apps that I have. There's a couple of apps that I have for learning jiu-jitsu, the roadmap that you said you used. That's available as a free plus purchases apps. You can get the basic idea. You can sample it for free. You can get the overall picture of a positional based game.
I really wish we had had more time enough to go into your marketing mind also, because I'm fascinated by that too. I mean, I read all the copy on your website pages.
I'm sorry.
No, I did. Because I mean, you know, I don't have my school anymore, so I don't need to be up on that stuff. But it's all top notch. It really is. It's all top notch.
Well, thank you. It's I mean, it's a skill too, right? And it's a skill I never thought I would develop or be forced to develop or choose to develop ever.
Yeah.
But it just goes, you know, when I'm trying to remember where the quote comes from, but when it comes to innovation or starving, people, you know, if given the choice between innovation and starvation, people choose innovation.
Yeah.
So the working on grapple arts, it was ramped up several times. And, you know, was it 8 years ago? You know, I'm not complaining about it. I'm in a good place. Went through a really difficult divorce, lost pretty much everything. You know, you're 40 years old, you're living in a basement apartment with a couple of kids. You're taking home, you know, $8 an hour from the fire department because everything else is going off to pay legal bills and alimony and that sort of thing. You know, given the choice between starvation and innovation, you innovate. So then it was like, do I contract my life? And literally, I have a cabin. I have a house now, but I had a cabin. Like, do I shrink everything, go live in the cabin? Or, you know, it was a viable option. It's one I thought about. And then it was like, what kind of example am I setting for my kids? If I face with this adversity, I fold or I contract.
Yeah.
So then it's like, no, I'm going to go down swinging. So that really was the beginning of the expansion of grapple arts, getting really serious about it. Like, what's the best way to get serious about it? Yeah, I could, you know, do the whole infomercial style marketing, promising all things to all people, which, you know, I do make promises, but at the same time, I give money back guarantees.
Right.
On my products. If you don't like it, if it's not for you, and I've had people who are good customers say, hey, I bought 1, 2, 3, and those are great. This fourth thing I bought doesn't meet my needs. Great, no problem. You know, like I really don't want to trick anybody into buying anything.
Yeah.
And the majority of my marketing, my YouTube, my podcast, my Instagram, my blog, I'm trying to give information, right? It's essentially guilt people into buying stuff by giving them so much stuff. I mean, we've got well north of 1,000 videos out there, and, you know, way more than 1,000 blog posts discussing different aspects. If people go to grapplearts.com/articles, there's a search bar there. So there's some topic in grappling or self-defense. I've got a little bit more self-defense stuff there. Also,
there's selfdefensetutorials.com also, right?
Yeah, I was trying to split sort of the grappling focused stuff with more of the self-defense oriented stuff. A lot of the self-defense oriented stuff is through the prism, AKD, with obviously a little bit of an emphasis on grappling, but I don't think grappling is the be all and end all. I think it's a fantastic component.
Yeah.
I can only give people striking or wrestling or grapple or jiu-jitsu. I'd give them jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important component of being a well-rounded martial artist, and it's possibly it's a possible standalone thing. I actually don't think in the modern era that boxing or kickboxing is a standalone thing, because it's so easy for the untrained person to crash.
Yes.
But I'm not advocating that you only are a grappler. But if you are only a grappler, you've got a pretty good chance of crashing and struggling, and eventually somebody will fall down. And whether you're on top or bottom, you're in your element now. So that also goes back to answering your question about, is jiu-jitsu the perfect martial art? Well, if we're still talking pure systems, you know, Kyokushin karate versus Hungar Kung Fu versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Wing Chun Kung Fu versus Savat.
Yeah.
pure systems, which, you know, to be fair, we're never pure, but whatever. Of the pure systems, I think you've got the highest chance of success with the jiu-jitsu, because it can effectively nullify the other ones easier than the other ones can nullify it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, it's a tough reality for some people to face up to and accept. But I think people like you, who, because of things that have happened in your life, where you had to, like the story you just told, you had to take a look at reality. There was no, you know, imagining yourself out of it. You had to deal with that reality. And so I think it shows, right, in the success that you've achieved. Because I'll leave you with this one last thing. Another excellent piece of work from you. I probably get the title wrong, but I think it is the 16 beginner techniques. Is it, what's the title?
You look it up. It's the beginner. You're talking about the blog post I did at grapplearts.com/articles on the beginner. I don't remember exactly how many it was. I think 16 is right.
Yeah.
Beginner. Funny. If you type in beginner BJJ techniques, you end up with the 16 most important techniques for the BJJ beginner. Who wrote that? Wait a second. I wrote that. Pretty cool.
Excellent piece of work. Really, really top notch.
You know, it's just so important for people to have a bit of the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, and that's the central idea of the BJJ Roadmap, the BJJ Roadmap app, or the book, which is free. If you search for BJJ Roadmap book, you can find it. Is having the big picture, and that just, when people see grappling, there's arms and legs all over the place, and there's, you know, people are standing upside, you know, on their heads, and it's just so intimidating. And then somebody comes and shows you an arm lock.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes and shows you an escape from a headlock. And then somebody shows you this thing where you use your legs and you kind of put them here and you flip the person and sweep. And it's confusing, but if you can put it into context of that there are sort of 6 basic positions, which you can subdivide, of course. You know, there's the guard, the mount, the knee mount, the side mount, the turtle, and the back. It's not a comprehensive list. There are some weird positions, you know. I've been grappling for 30 years, jiu-jitsu for 21 years, and I still end up in positions where I go, I've never been here before. I really don't know what to do here. Let me try and figure this out from first principles on the fly, and let me not screw up too badly. But most of the time, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, I'm in one of those 6 positions. And so just knowing that there are 6 positions and that you can be on top or on bottom,
Right.
and that your goals on top are to submit or improve your position, and your goals on bottom are to escape and improve your position or sweep the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, and having some examples gives you a place to then contextualize all the other stuff you're getting in. Again, you know, like it's a little bit like the Kali that Daniel Santo teaches, right? Like there's double stick, there's espada and daga, there's single stick. Yes, of course, there's correlations between them. But if he shows you a technique, or we decide to practice a technique, it categorizes a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. This is large. If I say we're going to do long range double stick today, you got an idea of what we're going to be doing. If I say we're going to be doing close range espada y daga, it contextualizes what we're about to be doing. Mm-hmm. And it's not just, oh, here's a bunch of weapons, here's a bunch of techniques, and we're far away, now we're close together, and it helps the learning process.
Yeah.
And it gives people a direction, right? The simplest way to characterize jiu-jitsu is close the distance, take the guy down, get on top, pass the guard, get on top, choke him out. That's the simplest. That stops working a little bit, then you need to go one level of sophistication up, right, which is 6 basic positions. Of course, those 6 basic positions don't cover the leg lock positions. So that's a whole nother module you can bring in. And you're worried about getting involved in jiu-jitsu because it's so endless. Yeah, I mean, there's about, so there's, depending how you fine slice it, there's sort of 6 to 10 upper body positions, and then about 10 to 12 leg entanglement positions. So now you're talking 24 positions, left and right. Now, somewhere like 40 positions, top and bottom. Now,
Yeah.
8 positions. You can, from each of those, there's how many attacks? You know,
Mhm.
tons. So it gets complicated pretty quick. But if you just start out with a basic division of positions, it's, you know, like that. It's good enough for the girls I go out with. It's a good enough first order heuristic to simplify all that stuff. You know, if you can take 80% of the confusion out of a situation, that's pretty good. That's a good start.
Yeah.
Start with simplifying this by 80%.
All right, man. Listen, this was quite a pleasure. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I apologize for the initial problems with Facebook. Next time I will do a dry run first to make sure that every single potential pitfall is out.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sure thing, man. All right. Take care.
Take care.